live. Ben, what's up, brother? It's been a long time. How you
What's up,
been?
my guys? How you doing? I'm good. I'm good. Feel like I'm sitting down with two of the OGs today, man. This is decent.
So you know what, man? We have never actually sat down and had a conversation.
hmm
It's always been in passing, maybe like a quick 15-minute hi, hello, what's up, how's training? Nothing in depth. And I always wanted to actually slow down, but half the time I was showing up to Fit Nation broken and
Yeah,
Jazz was trying to fix us,
it's it's
So
it's always the worst time, especially when someone's injured. It was like, oh, get down, man. How's life? And it's like, bro, man, I'm like torn up here, right? So no, I
or
feel you. I
or
like this.
you
I like this.
Or you walk in and Jazz got that boomstick thing in our
Uh,
chest, moving our arms around and stuff like that, right?
totally.
So, man, I really wanted to take a kind of sit down and see, get to know you a little bit better, but also get to know a little bit about your early days. I did some research. You guys have a podcast of your own, so we'll definitely make sure to add that in the description and show notes, just so we can drive people to your guys' podcast too.
Appreciate
But
it.
man, get me started on because we like to do this with all our guests. Get me started on where were you born?
Yeah.
How was life growing up? And maybe like we can get into like how you got into the fitness world and stuff like that. But let's start off with like where were you born and how was the early days for you?
Most definitely. So born and raised in Surrey, proudly from Surrey, which I feel like we don't represent enough. There's a lot of beautiful things that come out of this city, and it gets lit up for a lot of the negativity. But proudly born and raised in Surrey, BC. Early years were pretty interesting for me. I was raised by a single mom, and dad was alcoholic, abusive, stuff like that. So, mom took the big step in the late 90s, which a lot of people didn't do, and she left them for the betterment of her kids. And for like something that was out of my control, those early years really shaped my personality, and a lot of the tenacity that I have for the things that I've kind of pursued in my life have come from those early years. Needless to say, I grew up at a very young age. Was um, I was exposed to the realities of life really, really early, which at the time was really shitty, but in hindsight, a big, big blessing. Um, and yeah, so grew up in the school system, a young man, a young boy with clearly with daddy issues and anger and violence issues within myself and just stuff that I was exposed to. And I was a bit of an outcast, right? Because of that, because I had a lot of that internal stuff that I obviously couldn't identify early on, but did later on in my life. But I had that internal struggle that really was exposed in my personality. I was erratic, always lashing out, and stuff like that. And that's funny because my mom is like a bit of a Jedi. I have a younger brother, sorry, and I have an older sister. So she raised two boys in Surrey as a single mom, and I got to give her a lot of kudos because she really knew what to do without having to do the talking, because she knew like that, like sitting down and talking with us was really going to bring out the worst. So what she did early on, she's from a pawn shop. She bought me you guys are like, they still have them. Like, there was the bench that's turned into a squat rack, and it came with that really thin barbell, not
Yep.
like the 45 regulation one.
Yep.
So she bought me that, and she, not for my birthday, nothing, just told them, bought it, left it in my room, and she allowed me to find it early on myself. So I was just, first thing I remember doing is sitting down and putting a little bit too much weight on it, got the bar off, and it just crushed me. And in that moment, like, I touched the iron, and I'm sure different points in your guys' life, you guys have experienced this too, but I knew I needed to do this shit the rest of my life. Like, at that moment, I think I was like, fuck, I got maybe 12 years old. And I knew right away, like, the way it made me feel, like everything, like, there started like the journey, like, I'm buying bodybuilding magazines and muscle tech and that type of stuff, and just diving into programs and stuff. And she really knew the Jedi part of her was that I need to get this kid to exert this extra energy that he has in a manner that will kind of be positive in his life. But I can't just take him to a therapist, because that's she I don't even think she believed in it. So
Hmm.
she wasn't gonna, bring that up or anything like that. And like, they say parents can't have that talk with you of like, how how are you feeling, like that type of stuff is different. And she definitely tried that, but it just wasn't going to work. So I really found weight training early on in my life, and it was the first point in my life that I remember feeling that I have full control over this. Like this, I can train as hard as I want, and there's going to be benefits and costs to that, and I can train very little, and there's going to be benefits and costs to that. But whatever I do, I am in control of those results. And learning that early on really set the trajectory for the rest of my life, which I do to this day.
Hmm. So, got a question for you. How old are you when your parents split?
It was 1999, so I would have been 10 years old, maybe 11.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
did you ever feel in your life that, because the absence of that masculine figure. Now, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not trying to say moms can't do it themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a few friends and even people that we follow that are professional bodybuilders that
Mm-hmm.
have that male figure missing. And
Mm-hmm.
they're always looking to find somebody that can kind of fill that space. And if they can't, that's when it starts to lead to that erratic behavior.
For sure.
So did you think like that? Like, did you have any phases like, like I have to be the top dog here, or a lot of this lashing out that you were doing? Because I correct me if I'm wrong. You had some stints where you get in a lot of fights when you were younger.
Definitely.
You had
Yeah.
some time where you flirted with anabolics and things like that,
Definitely. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I really want to dig into those type of things too.
Most definitely.
But like how did you feel at that time? Because you know what, man, like to be completely honest, people lose a parent.
Yeah.
It could be unfortunate circumstances, or it could be, they're all unfortunate, but
Hmm.
it could be from a split. It could be they pass away. But I've
Hmm.
noticed that it's like there's always something. Like there's always issues that if they're not dealt with earlier in life, it
Yeah.
leads to major problems. I know tons of ladies that have daddy issues. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then on the
Hmm.
flip side with men too, right? So
Definitely.
what exactly, when you're 10 years old, they split up, what was your thought process, and kind of how did you approach things? I know you're young,
Yeah.
naive and stuff, but how did it go for you
Definitely.
at that time?
I like, for me early on, because I saw the abuse firsthand. Like, I mean, there was multiple times where, I would see bruises on my mom's arms and stuff like that. And back then, like, I was my dad's mini me. Like, that was my Superman. And I remember distinctly early on, I think I must have been like maybe 7, 8 years old. And I saw the bruises, and I didn't need it to be explained to me that where those came from. Right. I knew at that age that, women aren't going out there roughhousing and coming back with bruises. I mean, your dad comes back from, bruised up. He was wrestling with the boys, and it makes sense. But I knew at that age that where that came from, how that happened. And then because my dad's alcoholism was spiraling, a lot of the violence was right in front of us. He would beat her right in front of us. He would beat us like in front of each other to set an example, right? So those early on days, I was suppressing the daddy issues and all of that by being that strong number one for my mom. It made sense early on. Like, hey, I'm standing up for my mom. Like, fuck this guy. I don't need this in my life. She doesn't need this in her life. I'm my mom's number one man for this. So that was able to mask a lot of the not the lack, because I learned how to become a man for my mama, because that's who we moved in with after the divorce. And he really showed me what it is to step up to be a man. Right. And so I had that figure in my life, but he was really smart too, where he never tried to be our father. He was more, he knew he needed to play like an older brother role, even though he was old enough to whatever, like handle that responsibility. But he, again, they're fucking, my mom and my mama, they're like Jedis. They know what to do and not just follow this norm. He never tried to be our father. He was trying to be an older brother to us. And so that really kind of made us realize that later on in life, that lack of not a male figure, because like you mentioned that people lose a parent, and you can lose a parent in many different ways. But when a parent passes away, they don't leave by choice. But for what fucked me up was that my mom left my dad, and my dad pretty much made that choice to do those things to force my mom to leave. And I had a lot of abandonment issues that came from that, because it was like, well, fuck, ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਤੇਰੇ, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
you know, ਤੂੰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ. You couldn't, and yes, alcoholism is a disease and all of that stuff, but like, you know, it's different when you have kids. Like your kids are, and I'm outside looking in. I don't have kids yet, but your kids are a supreme purpose, right? Where you'll stop a lot of things to make sure that they're taken care of. And I felt like that fucked me up the most. And it took a lot of later on in my life therapy to really go back to that child and really try and come from a place of compassion for my father, where, you know, there was a point where, you know, he did try to see us after, and my ego was so strong that I was like, I remember this distinctly. I was sitting, because there was a lot of mediators, a lot of family members were saying, you know, you should see your dad. And my mom was always like, listen, whatever's happened has happened. This is your father. You do not see this man because of me, because I want you to. This is still your father. You should meet him. And we were deciding, because of everything, and the ego took place or showed up and said that, no, fuck that. I can't forget what you did. And you know what? As my form of punishment for what you did, I'm not going to let you see me. So I remember sitting across from him at a coffee shop. And this was probably when I'm like in my 20s now. And I needed to see him one last time to tell him, listen, stop trying to call me from random numbers and trying to see me and shit like that. Like, we're done. And so I told him, I was like, you know, like, for what you've done, I never want to see you again. And, you know, like, stop attempting. He looked me dead in the eyes and he agreed. He's like, you're absolutely right. He's like, from this day on, I'll never try and contact you again. And he lived up to that. That was like the one promise he actually kept. And it wasn't until, you know, later on after he passed that I heard stories that like really broke me, where he would, I used to work at the bank before we did Fit Nation, and he would park up the street from my house, knowing what time I leave, just to get a glimpse of his son dressed up in a suit to see what he's doing and stuff. Respected the fact that I didn't want him to see me, but he would kind of observe us from afar,
Mm.
right? And I don't care how strong you are or what this person's done, that shit'll break you. And it did. And I remember like the day I found out that he passed away, um, the first feeling, and I couldn't shake this feeling for years afterwards, was guilt. I felt so fucking guilty, saying like, I don't know, maybe there was a part of me that thought, you know, we'll fix this later. Like, I'll have a point in my life, maybe, because, like, you know, you take advantage of people's presence and their life, and you think that, oh, you got time, right?
Mm.
And I felt guilty thinking that man died not knowing his son, and now I'm never gonna know that part of my history, my ancestry, because of what happened. And it turned at that moment, and it's weird how death will do this to you, where instead of me blaming him for so much of it, I started blaming myself for everything that transpired afterwards. And I felt the ego had taken advantage of me so hard that now my responsibility and my punishment was to live with this guilt. And I went through a real dark path, for years. And I give a lot of kudos to my wife, and to Jazz, even, for, you know, forcing me to go to therapy and like really deal with this shit, because I'm a I'm an Indian man, dude. I'll live miserably with my shitty fucking feelings just fine,
Mhm.
because of this is what we do. We live in a depressed state and we'll just muscle our way through our days, right? But that shit is toxic. That shit is cancer. And honestly, I felt like my wife deserved better. This was before I married her. And I was like, you know, the people in my life deserve better. So if I'm not going to fix myself for myself, I better do it for the people around me, because anyone that knows me knows that I'll do everything for everyone first and then not really do it for myself. And that is part of that guilt that I've held on from that childhood, thinking that you don't deserve this because of what you did, right?
Mm.
And it took me years to realize I do deserve it, and I am worthy, right?
Mhm.
But that shit did serve me, because, you know, I really learned to push it in the gym with that pain. The pain is uncomfortable, but pain is sometimes a fucking blessing. It will bring you to places in life that you know, happiness sometimes can't really bring you, right? And sometimes the pain can be a gift if we use it that way, but it can also be a detriment as well if we try and abuse ourselves because of pain too, right? That's a
Yeah, it's
long-winded answer, but I
no,
hope.
man, that's all very relative information. And man, like if we don't break it down like that with the details in terms of how you felt, your thought process, what your family was doing to help support you, how you felt about that. That's like the stuff that does, we can't do that in short form content. We
No,
need
for
to sit
sure.
down on a long
I
form
100%
kind of
agree.
setup so you can actually and now, man, hopefully that's gonna resonate with somebody that could be going through something similar. And it's like, yo, there is light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah,
and maybe it's going to be better if you haven't figured it out for the last few years. Maybe you need some support and some help, right?
definitely.
um Now that kind of, I want to rewind a little bit and talk more about, like, okay, the transitions. You're in high school, you're getting into some fights with people, you got a chip on your shoulder a little bit, you're trying to be that
Definitely.
guy for your mom.
Yeah.
And then you start dabbling into drugs, which is very common in our
Hmm.
generation at that time. You still
Hmm.
had the odd person that would be just hop on. They
Hmm.
saw this person do it, or
Hmm.
get to the get to that certain goal faster, thinking that more is better and things like that. So, maybe talk about how things were going in high school. You're getting into some fights,
Yeah.
you dabbled in drugs, and then hopefully we can segue that into when you finally got into the fitness industry and how
Yeah.
that all played out. Because you said you had a stint at working at the bank too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
let's kind of
Yeah.
navigate through that.
So, like, I mean, when you surround yourself with, bodybuilding.com and all these, the bodybuilding industry, right? Like, I remember this was like the peak of, my favorite bodybuilder, Victor Martinez. He was, you know what I mean? Like, and that guy, he's underrated. He went through a lot of fucking dark shit in his life that kind of held him back from, and that's why I think I resonate with Victor so much.
Should have been
Um,
'07 Olympia, man. He
that
should
he's
have been
that's
the
what
'07 winner run.
you
And I
know.
love
You get it.
and I love Jay.
Yeah.
I love Jay because he's one of my favorite bodybuilders of all time. But in '07, bro,
Yeah,
that was
Victor had
Victor's.
that
Yeah.
for sure.
Have
But
you seen him
there's a little
recently?
bit of politics involved there. But that's the type of stuff that I was like, surrounded by, and I remember back then I just wanted to look grotesque. I wanted to disgust people when I walk into the room, right? So that, combined with like little man syndrome, thinking that, like I ain't shit, like I need to get big quick. And then, you start getting into some fungi with other bande, like I was a pretty cocky guy in high school. I had a chip on my shoulder because, I didn't have a man to check me and be like, yo, what the fuck? No, boy, settle down, right?
Mhm.
So with that kind of like, at the peak of it, I kind of started fucking around with M1Ts because I was a pussy. I wasn't gonna use needles early on, right?
Mhm, mhm,
So M1Ts enter the scene, and when you're 17, like 16, 17, you're already fucking on natural steroids with the amount of testosterone that you're pumping through your system, and that just kind of made me balloon up at first, and you start throwing in some creatine and that first little bit, and you're just like really like blew my first like blow up quick, and it could have just been like placebo at first.
mhm,
So I dabble with M1Ts, and then I get this like association in my brain thinking I can take this pill and this is what happens. And so now I'm thinking like, oh fuck, okay, so if I take this, what's the next level from this? What's the next extreme I can take it to? And it wasn't too long before you know I start my first cycle, and my first cycle, real cycle was fuck, what was that oral that everyone would take to preload with Deca? Fucking
T3?
no, 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 no. It was huge in the.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Those just always take it.
You get a lot of water weight from it. It gives you gyno, but you balloon up quick, and then you preload it for any test that you're gonna take. So, anyways, I did like a cycle of that, and I ballooned up quick because back then I just wanted to be like 200 pounds, right? So I got up to
mhm,
190 really quick. And so then I'm like, okay, so I had a friend of mine who was really savvy with like, chemical compounds and what to do. And he had taken a cycle himself. And I was like, yo, so this is my first cycle. This is what I want to do. And he set me up with, what was my first cycle? It was a
okay.
test sip. And it was a great one, right? Because like, first of all, like, it takes about 3 weeks to kick in, but that means it stays in your system for 3 weeks longer after your last prick, right? So I was like, right away, I remember like being 18 years old, fucking going into the gym just off of placebo. It hasn't even hit my system yet, and I think I hit 315 on bench.
Yeah.
And back then, like my ego was getting stroked great because I used to go to Fleetwood Rec. I was getting big quick, right? And I'd have like, guys, everyone, you got everyone's got those people in the gym that you quietly respect. You look at from far
Yeah.
away, and you're just like, yo, that guy looks great, and like whatever, right? So I'm getting bigger, and these older guys are like giving me the nod now, and they like. I remember distinctly. I finished a lat pull down one time. I sat on lat pull down, and one of the OGs comes up to me and taps me on my shoulder. He's like, "Bro, you look fucking good." And you guys know when the homie in the gym comes up to you and like he's like, "Yo, you look good." 100 girls can tell you that you look great.
Yeah,
It doesn't
100%.
fucking matter because the one homie, the one that you respect,
Yeah.
that has arms that are from fucking Mars, is telling you you look good. You made it.
Mhm.
You made it. So that validated a lot of what I was doing because I had no idea what the consequences were going to be, right?
Mhm.
So I go through that, and throughout this whole process, I'm really bad with needles. Like I'm not. I had like a measles scare when I was a kid. I broke out into a bunch of red dots, and back then they pulled my blood. They did. I stayed at the hospital for a week, and it was something like 95 times they had to pull blood out of that week.
Wow.
So I really got fucking squirmish with needles. But downright phobia, but I wanted to be big so bad that I was like, fuck it. Like, just prick. I mean, I remember when I'd get pricked sometimes. Like, this one time I had to go to the homie's house, and as one time his dad was home, they were all walking around upstairs. It's like 8 p.m. And I pull up to the side of his house, and he's like, yo, just come to the side of the garage. And in the dark, off of a floodlight, he fucking pricked me, got me my fucking, like, I was desperate at these points. My mom found my vial once of SIP, and she's like, what the fuck is this? And I remember having a roid rage on her. This is my friend's diabetes medicine, and he's going to like just flying straight out of my teeth. Like this, it turns you into a demon, and you don't even realize it, right?
Yeah.
It's good.
Right. So then I remember taking the vial from her. At that point, I was like, I have to take it to him right now because he's fucking like whatever, right? So, and then that was the only. I took one cycle with needles, and that was it, right? And so, a couple of weeks, about a month or two goes by, and my I can't get hard, right? I'm in this like crazy depressive state because my drive is all gone. I don't want to work out. I'm eating Taco Bell every day, and I'm in the dumps now. And I had to like, it was like a great wake up call because obviously on the blogs everything will tell you like I took somewhat of a PCT, but it wasn't enough because I was like I'm just gonna hop on gear again. But then one thing leads to another, and you just
Was it
don't do
was
it.
this after you were completely done?
Yeah, after I was completely done.
Yeah.
And I wasn't smart with it, and like I didn't take a PCT, and I remember getting into the dumps, and
Yeah.
like I'm not sure if you guys have ever felt this before, but there's like this when you're in a depressive state, you kind of want to stay there for a bit. Like when you are down, you are not thinking about getting better. You're almost comfortable sitting in this low part because it's so familiar now, right? And my client, one of my clients, he's actually like a really good friend of mine now. He said this great thing to me. He's like, the last thing we want to give up are our problems because there are uniquely ours.
Mm-hmm.
They're ours to keep, and I was identifying with that low state I was in, and like no matter how much outpouring of love I was being given in my life from my mom and my girlfriend, who I married, like I was with Ruby since grade 10, so she's seen me through all of this, and she would give me this outpouring of love and affection, and I'd get that from all these places, but I didn't want to accept it all because I think a lot of what was being accentuated was a lot of that childhood shit that I was going through and I had seen and felt because it had served me, but now I'm at the low point and everything's exposed for what it is. I'm standing there in my bare bones and I have to deal with this shit now. And I didn't, but what did and what did stay consistent is whether it was once a week, twice a week, 5 times a week, I'd stayed working out because I still always had that connection, right, with it.
Yeah.
To tie that into how I got into the fitness industry, it kind of let's go a little let's go a little parallel with this. So at the same time, I enrolled into Quantland, and I got it. I went to Kwantlen because my girlfriend was going there, and one of my best friends at the time, they were going, so I was just gonna do whatever they were doing, right? And I took all my classes with either Ruby or my friend Rav, and the long and the short of it is I fucked the dog and didn't go to any of my classes, got on academic probation, and again, the Jedi master that my mom is, she said, I'm gonna take care of your housing, feed you, all of that stuff, but I would need you are gonna pay for school. This is your decision. You're going to pay for school, right? And so, being the tenacious self that I am, I decided to drop out. I was like, you know what? School isn't for me. And my mom, as pissed as she was and all of that, she said, okay, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but you have to get a real job. You have to go out there and do something. And this time, I think I had worked at Foot Locker, at Rogers Video. My mom made sure that we were working from a young age and understood the responsibilities of paying bills from a young age. Mm-hmm. So I always had a job. And she's like, okay, now you got to, if you're not going to go to school, you're going to find something that's going to turn into a career. And so at 18, I got a job at the bank. And this is while I was on my cycle, mind you. So it's like a lot of like, dude, this is hilarious. I got the job at the bank. I'm a teller. I would bend my elbows in my dress shirt and my elbows would rip. So all my shirts had I was just blue. I'd be like, right? And everyone's just like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, you were 150 pounds and now you're like 200 in like 3 months. Bro, what the fuck, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm at the bank and I learned sales really early on because I worked those retail jobs, and so I start moving up really quick, right? So I go from teller to coordinator to I become an account manager. So it's pretty much like a mortgage broker, people that take care of car loans, mortgages, all that stuff, right? So I start working. I had to move locations. I went from working in Guildford, I went to Walnut Grove, and it was a really big blessing. Like I had a really cool manager there, a young brown guy, but everybody else was lifers. They were like, 20, 30-year veterans and these old white ladies, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with working at a bank or anything like that long term. That's not the point of this. But what I did see is a lot of these people were miserable, right? And I remember distinctly sitting in my cubicle one day, and I had my first panic attack. And so I'm sitting at my cubicle and the walls literally start closing in on me. I start breaking into sweats. I start hyperventilating a bit. And I think it was my ego, to be honest. I kind of like snapped myself out of it, but I got the realization right away. And I looked around and I said that, if I don't really make a change and figure this thing called life out, I am gonna look like a lot of these people, right? Miserable and all this. So right then I got on, and I don't know why I Googled personal training certification, right? Because even back in the day in like grade 7, I think I did a career project and I said I wanted to work at a gym or something like that, or like something along that. So I knew all my life what I wanted to do, but I had so many, like life had other plans for me in terms of distractions to get me to do everything but that. But now it was right in front of me, and I don't know, man, maybe it was like a
timing thing. It's a timing thing, man. Yeah, I believe definitely,
that. Right? 100%. So that hits me, and I'm like, okay, so I look up the certification, I start getting certified, and it sends me down this whole journey of like, holy shit, you can do something that isn't the traditional 9 to 5 route, right? And from there starts the journey. Like I was always a gym rat, and I now that I have this certification, I'm trying to figure out like, fuck, okay, like you can't just sit around and have this certification. This journey's just starting. This isn't like, So I go part-time at the bank, go from full-time account manager to part-time, and I start posting Craigslist ads for personal training. And
what year was this, Ben? When you started the PT work? What year?
I want to say 2010, 2009, maybe 2010.
Okay.
Definitely 2010. Because I had been at the bank since 2008, and within those 3 years, I was the account manager. So yeah, I said 2010, 2012 tops. And so I start my certification. I put my Craigslist ads up, and the great thing about and what I love about our Upper Community is we show love. Like if you have a business, like a lot of my cousins and my relatives started referring different people. And I know I have this one uncle that I know was paying for people to come train with me because he wanted to genuinely show love, right? And support me, because a lot of people back in that time weren't really doing that, where they were taking this step. And people did call me fucking crazy. Like dude, you're working at a bank, you got an account manager job. Like, what the fuck do you mean you're gonna go train people? You're gonna go from, my grandma called me out. She's like, "Tu suit pahna, hun tu jaake pajama pa ke kaam karna." Like, what the fuck? You're going back. You got the game backwards, kid. And I'm like, okay, so whatever. Like but I am getting a couple of clients here and there, and I'm starting to develop my own personality as a coach, because I'm a loud, rambunctious person as is. I was always like, even to this day, I'm always down for a silly goose time. Like we can't take this life too seriously. Like, let's just have fun. So I knew that I was going to be good at it, and I developed myself through the first few clients of who your personality as a coach is, because that's important early on, right? And then I remember the one that changed everything was I got a I got an email from someone off Craigslist, and this lady wanted to buy her daughter a Christmas present, and it was like 6 months worth of training. And by this point, me and Jazz were working together and stuff. And I went to Jazz's place. I was like, "Yo, this is the deal. She wants 6 months of training. Like, let's game plan this out. Like, how do we even price something like this?" Back then, it was just Wild West pricing. Like, I was like $20 a session,
What
whatever.
was sorry to cut you off. Was Fit
Yeah.
Nation already a thing at this time?
Not yet, not yet.
So where did you meet Jazz? Let's try.
Okay, so Jazz and I went to high school together. So he was a year younger than me. So I'd known Jazz for a very, very long time.
Okay, okay.
We were good friends throughout this whole process. Even early on, like in my life, he was always there.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So you were saying 6 months for the coaching for
6 months for the coaching, and so Jazz and I game planned this out, and we kind of like wrote it all out, and we're like, okay, so what if we price it at it? All in all, I think it came out to 6 months for, it was like, we are gonna charge like $150 a month. And we looked at the final number, we're like, yo, it feels like this is super low. Let's just throw something outrageous out there. It was like 2 grand, right?
Mhm.
And so we go to her place. She lives in Vancouver, and her mom's there, and just it's beautiful, man. Like, we were just pulling shit out of our ass. We're like, yo, we're gonna show up to your wherever you want. We can train you at Kits Beach, rain, sleet, snow, shine, doesn't matter. We got this comprehensive program for you. Blah blah blah. We didn't have shit. Right? Like, we were just Wild Westing it, right? Just a bunch of young boys just trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
Before you know it, her mom was like, dude, how can I say no? Like, let's do this, right? So just right there, got a check for the full amount, and then I was just like, okay, we gotta build a business out of this. This is like, let's back up what the fuck we're saying. Not just talk the talk, let's walk the walk too. So from there, Jazz was still at UBC at this time. So he was in his last year at UBC, and I started training Amanda out in Kits Beach, and she picked the time of 6 a.m. at Kits Beach every morning. So every morning I'd have to get up at 4:30, but a huge blessing, because to this day I wake up at that time, and it's just like set the standard for me. And as Jazz was finishing up, we were always trying to think, okay, what are we going to call this thing? What are we going to do, right? And Jazz was in, I think it was exercise physiology class, with Carmen Bott, who we attribute, she's our Ustad, because she gave us the system of training that we were going to train under, movement-based training. And so Jazz is game planning that, and he's developing the system of how we're going to do the meat and potatoes of the training, and our methodology, our signature, and all of that stuff. And I remember sitting there thinking, what's our brand? Who are we? What do we represent, right? And I remember sitting there one day, and Jay-Z had just sold Rockefeller, and he started his company called Rock Nation, and me and Jazz were Jay-Z stans, like not just what he did in music, but like his business moves and all of that. And that's when it hit me. I sat there, I remember sitting there vividly thinking, Fit Nation. I said it out loud, and boom, it was that's the one. Fit Nation. I had a bunch of other whack ass names, but Fit Nation, I said it was perfect. And we had a couple of other business partners at that point as well. We were all kind of collaborating. We were all independent contractors, but we were all working under the same umbrella. And I remember mentioning to them, saying that, hey, we should trademark this, right? And the trademark cost like $1,200 back then, and it's like 20 grand, thinking back then when we had nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, yo, don't waste your money to do that. I don't think we need to do that, blah blah blah. I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna do it just so I feel better, right? And so whatever, end up trademarking it, and then we start running as this one umbrella called Fit Nation, and we started putting it fucking everywhere. We got t-shirts made and all that, and just started passing them out. And really, I really attribute a lot of that first bit of brand recognition to that, of us just, you know, getting all these hoodies made, getting all these t-shirts made, and just handing them out to Tom, Dick, and Harry, and just making sure that in Surrey at least, it's fucking everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, man, like, you know, we were training everywhere from elementary schools to the beach to people's living rooms. One of my oldest clients, who I still train to this day, I used to train him in his living room. And you know, I'd walk into his house at 8 a.m. His wife's leaving for work. I go up to the rec room, give him his training, and then get out of there. And you know, he was a business owner, so he schooled me on game as well. And so then eventually we started realizing that, you know, we can't just go drive around aimlessly and train people. We have to have some sort of a central spot. So at that point, I set up my backyard. My mom was like, let's put a little like veranda in the back, and let's just put it. I went to, you know, Fitness Depot, got like a standalone squat rack and some barbells and stuff like that, and we all started collectively training people there. And before you knew it, like, you know, I was training, you know, I was at the bank maybe 3 days a week, and 7 days a week I was training people out of my backyard, and Jazz was as well, and our other partners were showing up there as well. And I remember, like, I'd get up at 6, come and train a couple of people, come back up, and Jazz would be walking into my house, and we were literally running that thing like a factory. Like, people were coming in and out all fucking day long. We would do our own training. We were on heavy powerlifting back then, and so we were on the Texas method. Shout out to Mark Ripatow, who really like gave us our foundation early on in terms of what our training is going to look like. 5x5s, you know, 5x3s, stuff like that. And so we had our own training, pretending like we were a bunch of amateur power lifters that were just trying to get our numbers up, and meanwhile getting our own, you know, real life experience in terms of what our system of training is going to be. And parts of those, of course, it's evolved a lot now, but parts of those, that core of training, we still use that. And I attribute a lot of our early on success on having that unified system that really helped develop our business. That, along with Indian ladies, man, they showed so much love, and they were such a specific niche for us because they were a neglected part of our community, and actually plays into the name Fit Nation, GOM, like the actual Our Nation name and brand. Because, you know, you're not going to see an auntie training at a you know, gym with a bunch of meatheads, and they're going to be intimidated by that. And me and you might, all three of us might love something like that, like Garage Fitness. Like, that was the spot, right? In Surrey. And but you're not going to see an auntie in there. So we learned early on that if we can expose weightlifting to auntie, because our genetics as Punjabi people is very strong. We're farmers, right? So if you can expose that, you know, that
Genetic
almost,
potential, yeah.
yeah, genetic potential, you're going to expose like them to so much more confidence, and them be able to own their day, right?
And there's another thing, bro. Like, when it comes to ladies, so
Mhm.
let's you know, you have enough experience in the game, you know absolutely what I'm talking about here when I say it. If you coach a guy, he'll be like, thanks, man.
Yeah.
He'll never post anything. He'll just be
No.
like, here's a picture of me. He'll, you know, show it to his buddies on his phone here or there. You
Mhm.
help a lady, you know, get her in the best shape for her wedding, and she's gonna be singing to everybody, you got to
I
go
tell the
here,
world.
best place, you got to go. So I know guys, because, you know, we talk about niching down when we talk
Mhm.
about the actual specifics of coaching and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I know some guys, I'm like, why do you coach ladies? He's like,
Yeah.
because they're going to be the best clients for me. It's going to be hard up front at first because their systems are different in terms of hormones, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah.
But he's like, they just like, my coach did this. Oh, this is my thing with my coach. And he's like, I don't even have to do any marketing because I helped 5 or 6 girls and they told the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
Me, I'm helping guys. He's like, I guess I could tell my buddy to,
Yeah.
and he's kind of like, man, I kind of want to keep you like my secret, you
Yeah, no,
know?
and that's the thing with guys, right? They don't want everyone to win. With women, they're just like my wife gets it all the time, where she's like a neat freak. So she on Instagram, she's got all these people that she follows of ways to organize your this, that, but she's sharing it with fucking everybody, right? She's bringing it up at parties and stuff. Like with guys, Like, I got the secret. I'm not gonna share this. Also, what I realized working with ladies and men is men have a way bigger ego, right? Women are like, hey, you're the expert. I'm not gonna get in your way. Tell me what to do, and I'm gonna or educate me through what needs to be done. And once I buy into it, I'm a soldier. With
Mm,
guys, you can be like, yo, bro, why are we not benching today?
mm.
It's like, well, we gotta train legs too, brother. We gotta make sure that you don't throw your lower back out, and plus posture is shit. So we're gonna probably have to put a bar on that back at some point, right?
Mhm.
And so with guys, there's a lot more like, no, no, menu pata. Okay, main karauna, right? Just let me. So that's why when we started attracting women to our facility, it was just so much better for them, and it was so much better for their kids, like other people in their lives, like because you know one of the things that I love about our stuff is that when a mom walks in, even to this day, and she'll bring her young 3-year-old daughter with her, and her daughter will sit right next to her station and watch her mom do Romanian deadlifts, watch her mom do assisted pull ups. Now imagine growing up where a young girl sees her mom, like, what's that going to do for a kid?
It's massive.
Especially a young girl. There's no better. You can give them all the books in the world, all the lessons in the world, but real life through a visual experience is going to be the best.
Yeah,
So,
it's crazy you brought that up. Sorry to cut you off, man. It's the point that I want to get across. Me and Sonny talked about this in a previous podcast where it's like you train at home, and man, like I don't know if you've done like Bulgarian split squats of death with the drop set and the iso holds and
oh
everything.
god.
And I'm dying. And my daughter's watching me and she's scared, right? She's like, why is he screaming? What's going on? And I'm like, I'm good, I'm good. And
Yeah.
they're being conditioned to be like, this is what the hard work is.
Hmm.
You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like we have a buddy of ours from early in the days, like he's from the 80s. And he
Right.
was saying in his alarm clock, because it was a different situation than yourself. It was a single father.
Oh
The
shit.
mother took off on him,
Mm.
and he was a military guy.
Oh shit.
And he's like, you know what would wake me up in the morning at 5? My dad smashing 300-400 pounds deadlift in the garage, and
Holy
it's just
shit.
smashing the floor. And he's like, that's my. And then he would say like, I had chores to do and stuff like that. My dad was a hard ass, but watching him like clockwork, training his ass off, grunting, sweating at that time, and lo and behold, not only is he a guy that hits the gym all the time to make sure that everything's in check, mental health, whatever, his kids have now followed suit. So we're talking about 2 generations now. And guess what? Now his kids are grown. They're about to have kids of their own. And what do you think's going to happen? It
Straight
starts to
up.
create that positive trajectory for people in health and fitness. So I think
Definitely.
that's huge, bro. That's huge. And
Yeah,
I
no.
actually, it's funny. I was on your Instagram
Mm.
watching, and it was like, oh, mother and daughter. I'm like, dude, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
no,
fucking cool,
it's there's
man.
nothing that makes me feel better than seeing something like that, man. It's huge, dude. And like now I have like some of my biggest inspirations are these average guys that are doing extraordinary things. Like this one guy, I have a client that comes in at 6 in the morning, and he had been doing it for about a year with me, and he's like, "Yo, man, do you mind if I bring my kid with me?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah. So you want to start coming in the evenings or whatever?" He's like, "No, we'll come at 6." His kid in grade 8 is coming 4 times a week to Fit Nation at 6 a.m. Walks in that door before his dad walks in the door because his dad will like kind of like take a second in the truck, whatever, and the kids walk in like, "Yo, what's up, Ben? What are we doing today?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Dude, we're gonna be working for you one day. Everyone's gonna work. You are so many years ahead of everyone else that you could choose to do whatever you want in your life right now, and you're gonna succeed. You're gonna want to find something new. It's
Yeah.
fucking incredible."
I
So
think I think role models are huge, bro. Role models like that, and people that don't have it. So my dad was never in the fitness stuff.
no,
You know what I mean? And so he's like, "You want to train? Okay, cool." And then there's Lucka at our house,
that's fucking insane, man.
right? He's like,
That's crazy.
and then he's like, "Okay, cool." And I got a book back there. It's the legendary book. Sonny knows all about it. I went from 170 pounds um to 265 pounds in 3 years.
Holy shit.
My bench press went from barely up 135
Yeah.
to 4 and a quarter in that 3 year period.
Motherfucker. What
Same
was
same program, same diet. We perma bulked. We
Oh
perma bulked.
shit.
I ate the same bro. Imagine this, right? Your calorie intake is like 2,000,
Yeah.
but the diet is 5,500. I didn't titrate up. I went straight into 5,500.
Oh my God, you put on, holy shit, dude.
And so I put on fat weight first, but I
Yeah.
just kept training and kept
Right,
training and kept
right.
training. And I just kept going harder and harder and harder. And Lucka comes down one day. He's like, what the fuck?
Well, you got
Right?
time
He's
for
like, what happened here? Right?
Yeah.
And listen, there was no such thing as a cheat meal back then because the book didn't
Yeah.
say cheat meal.
No.
So he's like, when was the last time you had cake? I'm like, I don't eat cake. When was the last time you had a chocolate bar? I don't do that. Right? What about protein shakes? I'm like, I don't do that. It's not in the plan. He's like, yo, man, like he didn't even expect that this would happen. Like I would take it and just be so crazy.
Yeah,
But it
yeah,
was
yeah,
because of the role model. It's because of
yeah,
who he was.
yeah.
He was the first Jack guy that I ever met. I'm like, holy shit, what is this?
I'll
Like,
do
who is
whatever.
this dude? And
Yeah,
everywhere I went, they're like, hey, where'd you get this program from? Like, you're training different. I'm like, I got it from Lucka. And back then he was like, especially in that community, he was
oh
like
yeah,
the man.
dude.
And they're like, oh, you learned from him. Oh
Yeah.
shit.
Still
And-
arguably probably the best physique in kabaddi. Like I remember seeing him on a front page of a newspaper, Punjabi newspaper, and this guy was a specimen. He didn't really look like he carried too much body fat, but he didn't look like he was just grotesque either. It was like perfect proportioned arms to chest. Like when you grow up watching bodybuilding and stuff like
yeah,
that, you
yeah,
you
yeah.
start looking at
You
proportions,
admire it.
right? Like the quads to abs, right? The glutes to the hamstrings proportion, the calves to the freaking quads. Like so Lucka, I remember seeing him and just being like, what the fuck? Like, I'll never look like this, right?
So that's where I was fortunate.
Mm,
So even though my dad didn't have that he put me in the right direction. He's kind of like I maybe it's just a parents thing. I don't know. His
mm,
timing was always impeccable. It was
yeah.
always like I'm gonna get into training, but I could also go left. I could start
Yeah.
hanging out with these guys that are at Strawberry Hill Cinema looking for
Yeah,
scraps
yeah,
all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah,
I could have been
100%.
that guy.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, okay, cool. You want to train? Bang. And then he gives me the book. And then
yeah,
I'm like, it's like my holy grail for that 5 year period, right? 3 to 5 year
right,
period.
right.
But I think it's massive to have those role models, bro. I think not everybody's parents are going to be into fitness and stuff like that. So having a location
For
like
sure.
Fit Nation, where it's kind of like this is a central hub for us. Parents are welcome to bring their children,
Yeah,
and I think people undervalue that. When you go to big box gyms, don't get me wrong, we all need facilities to train out of.
most
But
definitely.
they're not going to accommodate for like a little kid coming by. They're going to be like,
Mm,
sorry, the kid's
yeah,
underage, blah blah
on
blah.
stage. Yeah,
So for
absolutely.
you guys, it'd be like, hey, cool, you guys, here's some stuff you can do on the side, or you guys can hang and watch.
Yeah,
And just that in and of itself, it starts to mentally condition the people and the kids.
for
And
sure.
next thing you know, I mean, man, I think more people would be better off if they were just in the gym training at least minimum 3 times a week,
Absolutely.
just for mental health and things like that too. Because I have a experience working with people that deep depression,
Mm-hmm.
crazy depression,
Yeah.
but they don't exercise first. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm not an expert in this. You're gonna have to talk to an expert for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
can I get you coming into the gym?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of it's like that fear, right?
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what to do.
Yeah.
That's why when we were in your guys' facility, I remember I'd go in there. I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. You guys got trainers here. You
Yeah.
got. It's not like, oh, yo, like especially when you go to a big box gym, you got a meathead over there.
Yeah.
He might
Yeah.
he might just like have his headphones on and just walk right by.
For
Whereas
sure.
when we came to your place, Jazz was like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I would see Lucky there doing his toe raises or whatever
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it would just be like it'd be cool. It'd be like, holy shit, like you felt at home. I think atmosphere is huge.
Absolutely.
But man,
Yeah.
like I think that's like a nice spot, central hub. But it's crazy to know that you guys started off in like a backyard, going to
It
people's
is.
houses. That's real cool. And that
Yeah.
also should be a testament to people to be like, hey, listen, like imperfect action is sometimes better than being a perfectionist.
Kinetic movement is always more important than just sitting stagnant and overthinking, right? We'll overthink ourselves out of a great idea 10 times out of 10 if we don't just go out there and make a fucking mistake. Like we made 100 different mistakes, so when we had, again, that's why a lot of our tenaciousness kind of paid off because, we were a couple brown guys who we had no business signing our first lease when we did, right? And we got, again, impeccable timing. The universe is impeccable timing. The realtor that we kind of went through kind of recognized us. We tried to like fake our way into it, as asking a bunch of these questions. We Googled, what do you talk about negotiating a lease? And he was Jim Gammer. He recognized us for what we were, and he's like, "You guys signing your first lease, huh?" And we're like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, you guys are lucky. You got a good realtor. I'm gonna walk you through process. So he called us over to his house. He got us to explain what are we doing, and he's like, "Yo, this is great. You guys seem like you guys are good friends." He's like, "This is what you got to look out for." He's like, "Honestly, this landlord, you're not gonna have to worry about anything. They're great. But traditionally in leases, you should be looking for X, Y, Z, fine print, blah 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 blah, strata fees, X, Y, Z." And he's like, "Here, I'll tell you. I obviously get another opinion on this, but I think you guys are gonna be a great fit here, blah blah blah." And we got lucky with him, and so signed our first lease. And then we learned the hard way. It's sometimes getting things approved through the city is going to be super fucking tough. So what we thought was going to be 4 weeks to build out our facility took 3.5 months, right? Of paying the lease and not having any money to show for it, still training people in the backyard. And it was like super frustrating at first, but then again, like, overspent on some stuff, underspent. Like I remember like we were hell bent on building a washroom in our old first facility,
Yeah,
and we
man.
had to and nobody used it. Right, it was the hardest thing to get approved. The plumbing, the fucking the final, all of that. We had to dig or cut through. I think it was like 12 inches of concrete to try and find the main water line, and it was just make this thing, and we're the only people showering in it. Not a single client, maybe one client showered in there, right? And we're like, what?
I remember Dad saying that too. He's like, "Sonny, you want to shower?" I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Just use it, man."
Please, somebody use it. Yeah, like,
just use it, bro. I mean? Put some oil on you. Come on, take it off.
Okay, so first of all, I think we're gonna have to do a part two, because I think we can go on for there's a lot of stuff, bro. I have like 30, 40 questions that me and Sonny do. Actually, I have like 300 questions, if I'm being completely honest, that I actually wanted to do with you, because it'd be great. Like, we have our different perspectives.
Most definitely.
So now we're gonna have to. Okay, I need to get into the running part.
Yeah, I was really hoping you would. Yeah, definitely.
Because all of a sudden, I'm like, I thought you guys were like, because I always go off the vibe. I'm like, okay, these guys are doing some heavy duty powerlifting stuff. They're into the mobility work.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're going in the right direction. And Jazz has always been like, he's very receptive. He'll actually like, I've given a lot of clinicians advice, right? I'm like, yo, I might not be like, in your field, but I have been through so many clinics in the last 18 years, getting massage work, getting physio work, getting chiropractic stuff, and a lot of our close friends, like we have a mutual, like for example, one of the physios that we see is Jag Baines.
The man, dude.
You know what I mean? And then where Lucky is currently at Therapex, you got Harp guys, right? And then Lucky's another one of those guys. And then, there's one of my good friends, Billy, is also a kin. So it's like, I was like, hey man, I don't think you should be doing active release therapy on 20 of the biggest dudes in our area.
Yeah, for
sure.
And
he's like, I think you're right, man. My fingers hurt. I can't even train after this.
Straight up.
And sure enough, then that's where it linked to Lucky. Now I've been close with Lucky since he first went to Fit Nation. That's how I actually met him.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Right. So Jazz, like, I got a guy for you. Right, go to him. And then we just started going to Lucky when he was doing his hours for his massage, stuff that he has to put in.
Yeah.
And then he shifted around. He went to Fleetwood, and then now he's currently at Therapex. But all of a sudden, it went from like a powerlifting, mobility based, strength training place. You guys had your classes for sure. I'm like, these motherfuckers are just running now all the time. And you got Jazz, the Ironman guy.
Yeah, dude.
You got you guys, and then I remember talking to Lucky, and Lucky's like, "Yeah, I want to run a marathon." I think it was the one in Chilliwack that was the first marathon.
Yeah.
He's like, and I'm like, you know what? Let's do this. Let me coach you.
Sick.
So I actually did his nutrition for that.
Oh, wicked. Okay, I didn't know that. That's fucking wild.
Yeah, and he was telling me like, last time I did this, I got really bloated. I'm like, it's probably because you paralysis by analysis. You're probably like, I got to eat a little bit more food the day of, and I'm like, you typically don't want to do that. No. And I think the biggest thing he learned was just a hydration protocol that we have. Especially if you guys are running that much, being able to rehydrate and be able to do more.
Timing, man. Timing on that's important.
When did the freaking running happen? Like, when did you guys say, hey, fuck it, we're going to be marathon runners now?
I got to blame all of the running on Jazz, man, and thank him for fucking just introducing it to our lives, because, it's funny. It's been a reoccurring theme in our lives. When we were doing a lot of powerlifting, we'd see runners, and we would literally point and laugh at them. Look at these fucking losers.
Same
Why
here,
would you rather not just squat 3 times a week? You don't need to run, right? And then everybody got the gift of COVID, and we had to shut down our facility. And you know, we had access to this facility, and we have this great sense of community for Fit Nation, that I felt guilty working out when no one else is allowed to use our facility. So I'd sit here at home, you know, like anxious, like, oh, I feel like working out, but you know, like I go there and it's just like, oh, we galajini bandhi, right? Like I don't feel right. So Jazz had started running at that point. So we started running. I started, you know, 2 kilometers, and I'd have to like stop and go, 30 seconds on, stop and go, and it was just brutal. And like the reoccurring theme in my life, like I find something that's tough, I get the itch, and it's like, the fuck do you mean it's tough to run? Fuck that. That egos come up, and again, this, it served me. Whereas like I now need to conquer running, and if anybody that's done long distance running or any kind of long form running knows, the run always wins. The road is relentless. The road is always going to win, and there's something beautiful about that. It's something like poetic about, you know, going into this battle with the road, knowing the road is going to win every single time, but you've gotten this much better every time. And I found that with running, and also it's tied into my healing process and how I process things. You know, you can't do, you know, okay, let's say in a 10K run, I'll do 10,000 steps. So I'm constantly moving. I'm always in perpetual movement. In squats or deadlifts or anything like that, there is no perpetual movement part of it. So it's kind of working a different part of the brain. It's gonna get that fucking first bit of anger and aggression out. But in running, you could be angry for 5 minutes, and then you're gonna be like, okay, what's really going on? Like I've had a lot of runs where, you know, I'm 20 minutes into an hour and a half run, and it's like, why did I speak to my wife that way? And before I wasn't even thinking about it. Why haven't you called your mom? When's the last time you talked to your mom? Have you checked in on your brother? Like I'm having to deal with all of these little things in my subconscious mind that I've packed away, that because I'm physically can't hold this shit up anymore, like, as for lack of a better metaphor, I'm having to like slowly bring it to my foresight now, because my physical is exerted. I don't have the strength to just put a blind eye to all the things that do matter but I don't want to deal with. And I've had so many of these aha moments while I'm running, that it's always kept me served and engaged because of that. And that's before we got into like the races. Like we did the Loop de Vetter. It was a half marathon in Chilliwack that we did, and you know, I've easily the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I always felt like the race has always beat me, and I've never felt like I've conquered it. And maybe that's part of the chase, but like it's always found a way to keep me engaged, and now it's become a part of my, like when I don't run, I don't feel right, especially for my mental health, my anxiety and the chatter in my head. It really just sorts that out for me. And I mean, I remember like even, okay, so our last, the marathon that we did, the BMO marathon, the first marathon we ever did, you know, 42.2 kilometers. It makes me want to throw up just thinking about it. And I remember the prep for it. The prep for it would be a 12.5K run, a 15K run, another 12.5, and then the end of the week you do a 20 to 25K run. That kind of progressed on
Undulating, yeah.
to a 32-kilometer run a couple weeks out from your race, right? And it's a fucking long time. And I remember everyone telling me, you know, like the veterans in the game telling me the race isn't going to start until the 32-kilometer mark. And I was like, you're fucking crazy, because 42 is long enough as is. I'm not thinking about 32. What the fuck do you mean, right? So we start the race, and oh, the boy is feeling good. Like I am hitting an amazing pace. Like I almost PR my half marathon at the midway point. I my PR for my half marathon was an hour 31.
What was your average per click?
Per click at the end of the race was 4:54. I ran my half marathon, my best running performance ever. I ran it at 4:19 a kilometer, and I finished at 4:31. I crossed the midway point of the marathon, the half marathon point at the marathon. I think I was like 1:32. So I was like, I'm feeling good, right? And so I'm going, and I'm getting closer to 30 kilometers, and I feel legs are starting to get heavy, right? And
let's put this into perspective. This is almost 3 hours of running, right?
3 plus hours.
So people should realize that. It's not like, oh, adhe kante lage.
No,
talking 3 hours.
Non-stop running. Okay, it's non-stop running. Let's put it into perspective this way. Go turn on The Godfather Part 1. 3+ hour movie. Now imagine watching that movie in nonstop running mode, trying to race at that, like trying to go as fast as you can, right? So that's where we're at. And then the 32-kilometer mark hits me, and guys, I'm telling you, it sucked the soul out of me. My mind, and I learned something so fucking important about myself, that my mind and my spirit will never die. It'll die like after my body's shut down. I cramped up in my hip flexor, my hamstrings, my calves, everything locked up, but I was just getting frustrated to the point where I wanted to cry because I was like, I want to fucking move, but my body is giving out. What the fuck? So I crawl to a med station, I take some electrolytes, have some water, spray a bunch of shit on my face, and I start going again, and I start feeling like, oh shit, okay, I'm getting my rhythm back. And at that point, you're playing such a game of inches that I go and go, and I think, oh, remember when your hip flexor cramped up, and boom, right away my hip flexor would cramp up. So like, you have to stay laser focused, because at this point, at 32 kilometers, you have done so much that the body and the mind cannot take a deviation from anything. It just needs to stay laser focused. Marja de marna, just keep moving, right? And I learned that about myself, that like my spirit will keep going, and I have this like weird, not extra gear. It's something that's coming from a supernatural source that'll, the human body is capable of so fucking much. We underestimate this vehicle that we have, and we are blessed to have that if we don't use it to these extremes, we are doing it such a fucking disservice. And I still believe that to this day, and that's what keeps me in running. I want to know what the fuck it feels like to rev this thing right up until the end, and then I'll deal with putting it together and stuff like that. But I believe I am not doing my duty as a human being, or at least what I'm supposed to do, if I don't use this human body to its extreme capabilities. And that was the same when I was, deadlifting and squatting and benching. And it's the same when I'm going out there and doing a marathon race, right? Like my new goal is to do, there's this thing called the Abbott World Champions. And that's what I'm currently training for. And it's 6 championships. I could be wrong on the locations, but it's Chicago, New York, Boston, London, Tokyo, and there's another one, a 6th one, Berlin. And you have to qualify for all of these. So my last marathon, I ran it at 3:25, and my next planned marathon is in December. And
how does this compare for Boston, like qualification wise?
Okay, so I'll tell you that. So like my last one, I ran it at 3:25. To qualify for Boston, I have to run it in 3 hours. So I have to shave 25 minutes off of my time,
which is no easy feat.
Let's put it into perspective. If you can shave off 3 to 5 minutes off of your marathon time, is an incredible feat.
Totally,
but
yeah.
I'm taking it off of the fact that it was my first marathon. I've actually hired a running coach now.
Okay, cool.
And it's the first time, and it's kind of embarrassing for me. Like I should have had a coach a long time ago for something, just being a coach. But I've hired a running coach because I have this. So we have a comprehensive plan. We have a huge aerobic base build-up plan that we're in the middle of right now.
Let's pause for a second.
Yep.
How many people would you go to and be like, I got a coach that teaches me how to run? And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And now the reason why I know is because I had a buddy of mine that was a mixed martial artist, Dave Perron. And he's like, I go to SFU and I actually have a coach that teaches me how to run.
Sick.
And I'm like, wait, why though? You know how to run. I was guilty of this, right? I was ignorant to this. And he's like, bro, he's like, come to these sessions and watch how this guy changes everything. The way you step, the way you pace, the way your hands go, everything.
Yeah.
And he'll look at the way you run and be like, oh, okay, you got a little bit of imbalance in your ankle here. You got internal rotation over there. Your hip's a little jacked up there. I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
So people that want to scoff or laugh at the idea of somebody that hires a coach for running, it's a game changer. But sorry, go ahead, man.
It's such a sweet science, and everything that Dave just said, I word for word resonate with. He changed my running economy is so important. So say you're doing those 10,000 steps, what your arm carriage is doing, or even to the fact of how clenched your fists are, what your jaw's doing. Like I was learning things of that I never would have even considered. And he's made me such an economical runner that it's changed my times, right? And so these little things that, your ego will hold you up from. And it's like, no, man, like it's reaffirmed that I am a student of this game, and I am in a grander sense a student of this life. I don't have any of it figured out. I've had my 5-year-old nieces teach me lessons on life, on curiosity, on how to ask questions. So I don't have it figured out, nor will I ever pretend like I do. And that's what makes me the coach I am. That's what makes me the runner that I am. That's what makes me the husband that I am, the brother that I am, because I nivi paketorida yaar. Like, it's not, I don't have it figured out, bro, and nor will I. But I'll be damned if I'm not gonna give it. One thing that they won't beat me on is my effort. No, you will not out effort me ever. I don't give a fuck who you are, because I'm willing to die. I will die at it. And I'll gladly go out that way. Right. And that's what's got to be and I hope that all of my brothers act like that. Like, there'll always be someone smarter, but there won't be someone that'll work harder than me. And if they are, I hope I get to meet them, because that's a great act to follow, because
Yeah,
it's going to make me work harder.
yeah,
And if us do that, we might be able to change a lot of things in everyone's life, right?
absolutely, absolutely. What I wanted to talk about was that kind of discipline to be able to kind of just keep going. So I remember, I don't know if you're familiar with Randeep Sodhi. He used to be the head wrestling coach at Ghuman Wrestling Club.
Okay, no.
So Ravi used to be. I got introduced to him through Lakha as well, because I was telling Lakha, "Hey, I got to get better at wrestling. I'm good at jujitsu, but
Right.
I'm gonna get freaking launched."
Yeah.
And then I got really close with Ravi, and Ravi told me stories about, like, I'm like, "Why do you think this guy is like so popular?" I was trying to play, like, he was my role model, right? Like, I looked up to him all these years, but I wanted to talk to Ravi. I'm like, "You've known him longer than I have, right?"
Mm.
He's known him since '96, when he had his big blow up, when he became super good, and
Right.
he's like, "I could tell this guy to be like, just practice a double leg shot with nobody there. Just practice that, right?" And he won't give him a timeline or nothing like that. And
Crazy.
Lucko will proceed to do it for hours,
Crazy. Just a
right?
student. Yeah.
And then I remember there used to be that kabaddi player Sonu, the one that the
Yeah.
Sonu jump,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 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 That guy.
And he's like, this guy's an animal, man. Like,
Mhm.
he's like, this guy is gonna carry me on his shoulders and go up and down the hill
Yeah.
till he, like, his body wants to break. Like, he was just what I learned from him was that. And I learned a lot from Ravi too. Ravi is one of the guys that we lost him too early. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? He was one of the great coaches. I learned a lot from him from a perspective of details in coaching,
Right.
because his Punjabi was really good and his English was really good.
Right.
So, and his ability to describe technique was
Right.
like none other.
Mm.
But when you were talking about that relentless kind of thing, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, bro, there's a breaking point for a lot of people,
Mhm.
right? And this is why I'm a huge on telling people, like, hey, if you're a runner and now you found the passion for this, I just want to dare you to try martial arts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know, there's some hard people, bro. When we trained for the world championships, there were Navy SEALs there.
Yeah.
These guys are hard people.
Yeah.
But the thing is, no matter how hard you are,
Yeah.
when it becomes like high stakes chess, where it's like, if you turn the wrong way, you're getting strangled. You
Right.
turn the other way, your arm's going.
Yeah.
It becomes this, like, almost like blissful moment where it's like, my body's about to collapse. I can't feel my body anymore. I'm barely able to breathe. This guy's trying to get checkmate on me. And I think what you were talking about, when you get that runner's high and you
Mhm.
get that peaceful moment, I think there's other parallels in other martial arts and other disciplines. Same way, like, how you're talking about with weights,
Yeah.
there were some parallels in
Yeah.
running.
Yeah.
And I'm going to challenge you to, bro, try some martial arts, man.
Brother, it's definitely on my list, because it's something so intriguing about that high level problem solving, where if you look at the UFC or any type of mixed martial arts, and you see oh, this is boring and stuff like that, but you realize that there is these two highly intelligent people stuck in a cage trying to rip each other's heads off, and no one's ripped each other's heads off yet. So something incredible is happening right in front of your eyes, and only a skilled person in the arts would know that, right? And it's so intriguing. The only problem that I have, and which most of us need, is I need 8 days in a week, and I need 25 hours in a day to take care of everything that I want to take care of, right? So that's my only thing. Time is my enemy in this life. And it's kind of also the most beautiful part of life, where this shit's finite, you know ਜਿੰਨੇ ਸ਼ੌਂਕ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਪੂਰੇ ਕਰ ਲੋ ਹੁਣ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ time ਹੈਗਾ, because when we don't have the time, I don't want to live a life where I'm sitting on my incapacitated years, thinking, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. I think that's the scariest thing in life to me, is living with what I could have done and didn't do.
And
And, and
I
I
see
know
that at
that'll
work,
kill
man. You know, like I work as a nurse too, so like you run into the people that talk about that stuff, man. Like
me.
it's a wake up call, bro. Like
Mm,
some people that say that I have no regrets, I did everything I wanted to do,
mhm.
and you see how peaceful they are compared to the ones that have things left or maybe lived a life for other people that they didn't want to live,
It's
and
crazy.
you see them suffering, man.
Oh,
It's
it's and seeing that real life example, fuck, that'll light a
yeah,
fire into your ass, huh?
it's yo, bro, totally. When I saw my grandpa, like his last little bit, and people are going coming up to him say, "Bajara, you know,
Yeah.
cancer hogi," and he's like, "We're all gonna go." He's like,
Yeah.
"At least I'm going with everything done."
Yeah.
He's like, "I saw my kids, I saw my grandkids, I saw everybody, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have no regrets."
You could
It's,
you could go yeah, you can go anytime. That's the one thing, you know. Sonny and I were we followed I don't know if you're familiar with John Meadows.
Don Meadows, no.
Yeah, you should look him up, man. He was a he's had a huge influence in terms of me, in terms of training people, and then just like philosophy of training and stuff like that. And then he had a rare clotting disease where he had some crazy things happen to him, and he
Mm.
became super successful though. You know,
Mm.
he's got 212 Mr. Olympia Sean Clarita was coached by him.
Oh shit.
Terrence Ruffin was coached by him in terms of the nutrition.
Mm.
You know, he's helped a lot of people. Fuad Abiyad's got his own podcast, Real
Yeah,
Bodybuilding
yeah, yeah.
Podcast. So Fuad was coached by him.
Yeah.
John's one of the legends. And he said it like, you know, he's like, I've almost died twice, man. He's like, you can go anytime. Like, you could have perfect blood work. And
Mm-hmm.
when the time comes, it's like, oh, he passed away in his sleep, or this
Yeah.
happened or that happened. So, like, being able to kind of not really like, you don't have to think like, oh, I'm going to die soon and I got to do
No, of
everything.
course
But
not.
I think people are hesitant, you know, in this time where it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. I think with COVID, it was a nice little mix up though. People are
Mm-hmm.
like, oh shit, I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually one of the things I actually started doing my coaching online right before COVID,
Yeah, so it worked out perfectly,
right? And
man.
I'm like, oh shit, this stuff's actually really good. I really enjoy this. You know what I mean? And I had already been doing it through jujitsu. Like people are like, hey, can you help me make weight for this? I
Mm-hmm.
got a boxing. Like I remember one of our mutual friends in the past. His brother was like, hey man, I have to weigh this much by the end of the week, but I don't know how to cut weight. Like, what do I
Yeah,
do? And I'm
yeah.
like, I don't know either, but let me study. And
Let's
so I
figure this
studied,
out. Yeah,
literally
yeah.
figured it out, right? But all right, bro, there's a ton of questions that I actually have written. We're
Mhm.
not going to get to them. There's
Well, we'll
no
part two
way.
this thing, man. 100%.
Otherwise it's going to be freaking 5 hour, 6 hour podcast. But what I wanted to make sure we get through is the speed run question. So have you watched any of the episodes?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm ready.
So real quick, and I'm going to change them up a little bit too, because now that I know that you're into bodybuilding too, there's going to be some interesting questions because me and Sonny are huge on bodybuilding.
Okay.
Sonny, do you have the questions open up, or you want me to do them?
You do it, man.
Okay, your favorite car?
Favorite car, Jeep Wrangler.
Any year?
The '07 body shape, the Rubicons. I was fortunate enough to have mine.
Yeah,
I had a, what the fuck was it? It was a,
you guys
oh
had that done up nicely, man.
yeah, man, that thing was a dream. It was a
Yeah,
fucking hassle because like it was a pavement princess, so it was like lifted mud tires. I think I took it off roading maybe a handful of times.
yeah,
But that was actually a weird connection that I had with my father. He loved Jeeps.
yeah.
And sometimes you can't escape your genetics, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes those weird things kind of fall through. And so yeah, it was definitely Jeep Wrangler for me. And
You feel
luckily
about
enough,
what do you feel about the one new ones now with the pickup truck?
I hate them.
Right? Like,
Bastardization of a
what the
great
hell, man?
vehicle. And listen, you want a pickup? Go get a pickup. You
Straight
can't have
up,
a
man.
Jeep
Straight
and
up.
like, you know what I mean? They look like shit.
What the
Okay, squat or deadlift?
Deadlift.
Any
Deadlift
reason?
because I was really good at it. I was much better at my deadlift than I was my squat. I didn't test singles on my squat, but I hit my 5 sets of 5 were at 315, and I missed one of the reps, so I actually had to do like 20. Like so, we would do 3 times a week. Texas meth our starting strength method or progression was 3 times a week, 3 sets of 5 of your squat. So I had to do 15 sets a week.
Mhm.
Before you can get to Texas method, you have to hit 315 on the squat. I ended up having to do like 3 consecutive weeks of 315 on the squat 3x5, and it was the hardest shit I ever did. And it was, I had such a weird I had such weird numbers. Like my squat was 315 5x5, my bench was 310 5x5, and my deadlift was 445 for one set of five. And I really wish I had tested singles, but the squat, it just gives me PTSD having to do so many sets at that much weight, man, because you guys know what it's like to recover from that. It's like, I remember when we were doing Texas Method, like it would be on Monday that we'd have our heaviest day, and Friday we'd be sitting at the edge of our seat. My girlfriend would call me, and I'd just be like, "Oh fuck, I can't pick up this phone. I got a squat on Monday." I was like, "She's gonna want to go for dinner, and I can't fucking do it. Like, I just need to fucking think about my squats." So I just have so much PTSD around my squats, but my deadlift for sure. I love deadlifting.
Man, I don't think Sonny, have you ever done 5x5 for the squats, or had it always been the super high amount of sets that we did?
Whatever the fuck we used to do, bro. That shit was fucked up.
So Ben, I'm gonna okay. So even though it's speed round, but I'm gonna break it to you. This was the Laka plan for squats only,
Okay.
right? So we're gonna do two times 20, 135.
Okay.
One times
Yeah.
15, 225. One times 10, 275. One times 8, 315. One times 7, add a 3 1/4. 6, 5, 4, 3.
Oh my
And you
God.
back off 2 sets of 8. That's all squatting in one Wednesday. And let's just put it this way, man. I was told Luck I did 6 plates for squats. So guess what my mission was? 6 plates for squats.
Yeah, man. Holy
right?
shit.
And we used to do that every Wednesday. So basically, like I think the Ripito method was like the frequency was higher.
Yeah,
right?
way higher. Yeah.
This was just like fuck frequency. You're doing legs and you're gonna kill your legs at one time. And that was like and Sonny's got Osgood Schlatter and he's squatting.
Oh
And he's
my
like,
God.
and we're like, F the pain, bro. You got to squat.
There's days where like like now our training is so different, right? Like I'll leave and I'll be like, my goat day will not hurt, but my legs are pumped.
Yeah.
Those are the days where my goat day will be hurting, my left arm won't even pump.
and then you're just young, dumb, full of cum, and you're just like, fuck it, if I can do it, I can do it, man. And that's
you get a call like, yo, how you feeling, bro? I can't even move. Yeah.
But if we take it back to that time, there's that, maybe it's the nostalgia, maybe it's reminiscent on old times, but those times seem simpler. Like now you're a business owner, right? You're married, I don't know about you guys and yourself and having kids, but then that's another chapter. And it's like, bro, back then it was just like, let's eat a shit ton of food, meet up with my boys, and we're gonna lift heavy as hell. And your bodies were healthy.
And you know what? And it's so much better than that being a seminal memory for us than, man, remember how much we used to party, bro? Like, oh man, the clubs, bro. Like, I'm so proud of myself for not being like those memories for me being that than it is like the gym. And I think that's another thing that we can't downplay for the gym is like when it becomes a core memory for you, it's such a, you don't really get douchebags that love going to the gym. You know, you always have a disciplined individual in front of you. They have somewhat of an education, whether it's bro science or whether it's actual analytical data. But they know shit about themselves. They've really pushed their body to a limit, and there's something that is humbling about a person like that than there is that guy that identifies himself as the partier, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Favorite day of the week?
For Monday, man. Monday morning. Monday morning is my favorite day of the
week.
So
we're gonna get a lot of Mondays, Sonny. We've been getting a lot of Mondays lately, man. There's not a lot of TGF. It's the generation, the people we interview are probably guys that are getting after it.
Too, a lot of the people that we've been talking to that are saying Monday morning aren't the 9 to 5 guys.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a difference, right? Like I love Mondays. I mean, it's just for me, it's a fresh start to the week, but it's not because I work. I mean, I don't work a Monday to Friday job, but like everyone that has said that so far is on their own hustle.
That's dope. That's good to know. Yeah,
definitely. What about the last song you downloaded?
The last song, I got this. It's an album. 1 second, I'm gonna pull it up. This shit is fire. It's been my training shit for the last bit as well. The last song I downloaded is this guy created it's called Family Recipes by Oshu. I don't know if you guys can see it, but that's like the album. It's all like old school songs. It's called Sunshine in Your City, and it's Sajjana Ve Sajjana. by Aparna Gurdas Man, but it's done off of lo-fi beats. But his whole album is like that. Like he's got a song on here called The Fakir, and it's a old school Shiv Kumar Batalvi interview that he's turned into a lo-fi track. He's got Shalla, but the Shalla version he has on this album is actually Sidhu Moosewala just did it off of like someone recorded it on an iPhone. But this guy changed up the vocals and made it so it's a lo-fi song. Really fucking dope. I've been bumping that all week.
Nice. At what age do you want to retire?
What age do I want to retire? The thing is, my concept of retirement would be to do the things that only the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And so on that mentality, I've already kind of retired. So I can't say I have I don't think retirement is a luxury for our generation. I think we know too much. I think retirement was given to a bunch of people after the war that had to do a bunch that the world needed them to do a bunch of jobs they didn't want to do. So let's sell them on the idea of retirement. I hope I die doing what I love doing and hopefully, making money doing it. So I guess I'm still employed at that point.
That's a
But
wicked perspective, man.
I don't think that I
I,
want to retire. I hope I die doing everything I love doing.
yeah, I say the same thing, man. I've actually a couple people ask me that too. Like, I'll just give example of Toll too. People are like, yo, like, what are you gonna do? Keep playing? I'm like, yo, if I'm at 70, 80 years old and I'm still playing, why
Epic,
not?
epic, epic.
Like,
That's exactly what you're supposed to be
I mean,
doing.
like, if it's something, if I'm still functioning, like,
Mm-hmm.
really, like, what am I gonna do sitting at home?
Man, a cowboy doesn't stop being a cowboy just because he's too old. A Kassan doesn't stop farming just because he's too
Yeah,
old, right? It's not in our DNA to do that, right? So yeah, I don't think I have an age of retirement. If
No,
anything,
that's well said, man. That's well said. That's how I look at it. For me, I work my daytime job, but that's eventually to get to the point where I can do this financially, where I can kind of help out, like my wife can do whatever she wants to do. That's kind of where I'm at, and that's essentially what I'm working on with my business and things like that.
yeah.
Your favorite childhood TV show or movie?
Okay, favorite childhood movie would be Kickboxer, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Before I discovered The Godfather, which was a little bit later on in my life, and that's top movie of all time. Taught me a lot of lessons on life and family and everything.
I've actually
And
never seen
then
it.
top TV show
Same.
growing up, hey? Growing up, top TV show Fresh Prince of Bel Air, because I always thought I was gonna be Will Smith and be a Fresh Prince until I realized I'm not black. So that's not gonna happen. Definitely Fresh Prince.
So money's not an issue. Your dream destination. You just traveled to
Yeah,
a couple months ago, right?
yeah. I was in Turkey.
Oh, cool.
Highly fucking recommend Turkey. Absolute great culture shock. Great people, great food, great everything. But money's not an object, no issues, nothing. My wife and I we fell in love again for the 15th time throughout our 18 years of being together, but deepest in the south of France. We were in Cannes for the last leg of our honeymoon, and something about the water, what was in the air, just being there with my new wife, and it was just incredible for me. And I I can give you a bunch of arbitrary words as to why, but it's so just out of this world that I don't want to disrespect it by giving you a bunch of words that it's like me trying to explain to you why I love my wife. I can say a bunch of things that aren't really it because it is inexplicable, right? It's that beautiful.
It's hard. You can't articulate it.
I can't, and
Yeah.
that's kind of when the things are the most beautiful, right?
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? For some reason, it ends up being the European areas
That's the
where
colonizer.
people.
That's the colonizer winning again.
Yeah, because I've noticed that, man. Like that was the same thing with my wife and I when we went to Greece, and I've heard it countless times. Where it's like I don't know what it was there, but it was like it was it for us as a couple. You know what I mean? But next one, I can tell you read. So how about you give me your top 3 books?
Top 3 books, okay.
And they don't have to be fitness related. They can be.
And they aren't. They're not.
Okay,
Absolutely
perfect,
not.
perfect.
The one book, number one, the only one I'll rank, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Book changed my life. Took me almost a year, more than a year to read it. Had to read it right next to a dictionary or looking it up on my phone because
Yeah.
I was exposed to so many fucking words, and it was the first time that I read a book that I had to keep going back. I wasn't reading it just to finish it. I was reading it to like understand it. So I'd have to keep going back and trying to understand where I'm at in the story. And this man and his life has been an example to me and my life since I've read this book. So one of the most important books. Second one, Monster, the autobiography of an LA gang member by Sanaika Shakur. This guy was a Crip from South Central LA. Came up under Tookie Williams, who was the founder of the Crips, and he had a pretty wild life. Like he pretty much, it's an autobiography of his life, and he talks about how he became a gang member at 9 years old, and how he got initiated, and how it gave him a sense of family when he was rejected by everything. And I mean, it's no surprise that he was abandoned by his father, and so I resonated with that story really, really, really well.
Mm.
And the other one is Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. This guy was a Black Panther. Bit of a wild fucking boy. That's an understatement, but he was part of the early civil rights movement of having to, mobilize his people to protect themselves from what was happening in America at that time. And later on in life, his life becomes an example of what not to do because he gets exiled out of the Black Panthers and moves to Europe. Holds Timothy Leary. Who was a big psychedelic guy. He was a professor for Stanford. He holds him hostage in Europe for like 6 months and kind of loses his mind to drugs and stuff. But it documents all of it through his book. So it turns out to being this real cool story about a community leader, but turns into a real dark story of what drugs and the times can do to you, or the responsibility that's bestowed upon you when you don't have the inner work done to hold that up. And I learned a lot from that book. Yeah.
Perfect, man. Thanks for sharing that. That's huge because I'm always looking for the
Mhm.
next one to read, add it to the list because I got a long list on my phone,
Yeah.
man. It's like every time I chip a couple off, it's like 10 more added on.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. And
there's
that's
just that's
the
the way
great
it
thing
should
about
be.
books, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So what was a major, like if you're gonna narrow it down to like a major light bulb moment in your life,
Mm.
you know, that really kind of, people can say the day that turned your life around, or even if it's in terms of your entrepreneurial
Mm.
ventures. It was there ever a light bulb moment like, oh shit, I think we got to do this.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned with
Yeah.
Jazz and yourself when you guys were talking
Yeah.
about putting that package together.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, we got to do something here. But
Uh-huh.
was there another major light bulb moment in your life? And
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm. So we had a mentor early on that we would have weekly meetings with. His name's Colin, and it was guys that's like we would sit down and have a mastermind meeting. So it'd be the three of us, me, Jazz, and our other business partner, and Colin, and we'd hang out at his house, and we'd kind of go through an episode of this podcast called "I Love Marketing" that really gave us our foundation in terms of client communication, marketing, and understanding what the psychology behind marketing is and what true marketing really means. And so it was under that guise, but he would actually just kind of school us on game on how to run a business and that type of stuff. And one day we were there, and I was getting to the point in my life where I was working at the bank, we were running Fit Nation, and I was doing this juggling act of life. And we were starting to kind of like hone in on finding a location and this type of stuff. And or no, we had just signed a lease, and we were supposed to get the keys soon or something like that. And in passing, we were standing in front of his in his kitchen, and Colin just looked at me and he's like, hey man, you think you're gonna be able to keep your job for any longer? And just continued on saying whatever he was saying. And he said those words to me, and everything around me just went whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, no, I couldn't, but just those words kept ringing in my head. Like, how much longer are you going to keep working at the bank and do this? You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You can't try and be all in means all in, right? And that was a scary thought. It was almost like the same as telling my mom I'm going to drop out, and now I'm going to tell my mom I'm going to leave my job at the bank and I'm going to go become a personal trainer full time. And I remember sitting there, and the conversation, I think their talks kept going on for about 10, 15 minutes, and I said, I like mumbled it under my breath, I got to quit my job. And they're like, what the fuck did you say? I was like, I got to quit my job, and everyone was like, whoa. And then like we all like shut the computer, put the book, sat down, and just had like a boys to boys talk of like, okay, like let's really talk this out. This is a really big step. I mean, now at this point, you're 7 years at the bank, and you've built up a lot of capital in terms of who you are and what you do at the bank, and this is a part of your identity. Blah blah blah. And we dissected all of it. Within 48 hours, I handed in my notice, and I was on my way out. Like, didn't have any means to kind of figure my stuff out because my mom made us pay for everything ourselves, other than where you're gonna live and the food you're gonna eat. Like everything else you gotta figure out. Now I have this new lease, and darta lagada yaga. Like fuck, man. Like you're responsible for a location now, and you got to make sure clients are coming in. And like, do you have a business? Do you not have a business? We don't really have a way to scale of what is success and what isn't success. And so it was fuck it, man, just young and dumb, and like handed in my notice, quit my job. And after that, after I went all in, and sink or swim moment, changed everything for the business, right? We were all in, all of us at the same time, now doing these masterminds. And now you can't think twice about, there's a certain security that comes with having that job, right? And so for me, I wasn't executing as much as, because I didn't need to. Right now, it's sink or swim. It's like, yo, you got shit to pay for, and you got people you're responsible for.
Burn the boats.
Burn the fucking boats, and you'll succeed, right? So that's what I fucking did, and then every decision became not only critical but actionable. Everything is an actionable item. Nothing is on the vision board anymore. At some point, you got to put the vision board and the business plan away, and it's like execute, 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 fall on your face, get up, dust yourself off, execute, 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 right? And somewhere in there, I think we figured something out. If not, I mean, like, what's the definition of that even? Because it's like, if I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and obviously we got to pay our bills and make sure that we are, taking care of those in our lives. I am the definition. I'm in my definition of success. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm happy with what I'm doing, and I'm proud of the work that I'm doing. So, if I'm looking back to that kid that quit his job all those years ago, I think he can take ease now, knowing that, hey man, it all
You're
worked
good.
out. We're
You're
still
good.
happy, we're still good, and we're still moving, we're still evolving, we're still changing, we're still waiting for what the next step is, and whatever that may be, right?
No, that's huge. It's funny you bring that up. I sent a quote to Sonny the other day.
Hmm.
I'm gonna paraphrase because I'm not gonna remember it off the top of my head, but it's like at your funeral, you're gonna have friends and family arguing over who gets what,
Uh-huh.
right? You're gonna have some people that are gonna be like, after they drive away, they're gonna be like thinking of their looming to-do list
Yeah.
of what to do.
Yeah.
You have other people saying like, oh, we got to get food for the people that are here,
Mm.
right? And then ultimately, there's going to be people that are going to say, hey, I was just too busy that day to show up. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Do what you want to do,
Straight up.
and when I read that, I'm like, oh, damn, and there's a security that really traps people in a sense of a
Mhm.
job or whatever.
Mhm.
And if you truly don't like it, man, I tell people like you got to hustle and grind, like what you described in yourself. You're like, well, I worked at the bank,
Mhm.
but we had a system in place where I'd do some training in the morning, then I'd go do my job, then I come back and then I work again. And you're training people 7 days a week, but you're also working your Monday to Friday
Mhm.
and you're trying to make it work. And the
Mhm.
thing is, man, I think people have to realize that you can do it.
Yeah,
You
100%.
can do it. But the thing is, though, you have to work like in overdrive mode a little bit,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? And I
But
think that's
I'll also say this, sorry to cut you off, but I'll say that like all of your passions don't need to make you money either. I know plenty of people that work the 9 to 5, have a great job, bring home the cake, and their passion is fitness. Their passion is running, but they're not trying to be a coach and
mhm,
trying to, and it's not for everyone. And I almost will say, because I've been on the other side of turning your passion with something is a quick fast track way to start hating what you do, because it
100%.
doesn't always remain your passion, right?
Yeah,
So be careful with what you try to monetize. We live in this culture of where hustle, 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 and turn your passion into monetized, businesses and stuff like that. And it's like, nah, man. Like I know some people that are great at what they do for a living, and they come home and their passion is being a great dad. And I fucking envy that. I love that. And there's nothing wrong with that either. We need people to work jobs as well, right? But if you know innately inside of you that what you're doing currently isn't what you want to be doing, and you're doing nothing about it, then you're just choosing to be miserable. And it's the definition of crazy, because you're expecting something to change. It's just not going to happen, right? But
Absolutely.
for those that are happy, I mean, more power to you. I almost envy that, like, you can find peace and happiness in that. And I guess that's what I'm still seeking, right? Is like finding that balance between that hard, relentless hustle and that hard work, and peace and happiness and content, because that's important too,
That's
right?
key right there, bro. Peace and content, man.
Yeah.
You get that in life, I think you've won.
And
That's
we actually had a coach that said, like, be mindful. Don't try to make your, like, don't try to monetize your passion, because you'll end up hating it after a while. It's a certain amount of time. And so that's one of the reasons why I've been really hesitant to train people in person. Because I fucking love training in person. I like how, and you know what, you know how it is, bro. If you got to train 8 people, right? 8 hours right there. And then you got to, you don't even want to train anymore some days. You're like, I don't even want to get it in. So for me, it's always been like, I'm not going to monetize this part. I'll do something else,
No, for sure. And that's the part of coaching they don't tell you about, is like, it's physically draining being that positive, enthusiastic,
You have to be on. You have to be on all the
always
time.
on, right? And the empathetic part where, as a personal trainer or in this industry, sometimes people will confide in you, and sometimes they'll confide some pretty heavy shit. And, carrying that is a heavy burden to carry sometimes. So there's a whole other aspect to this job that we have, that, you kind of have to find your releases. And that's what, again, running is for me, because I have to do it outside, I have to do it in nature, and I have to do it in the sun, so I can release a lot of that. But yeah, no, definitely, man.
Cool. Favorite cheat meal?
Favorite cheat meal? Oh, Maui ribs, man. Maui ribs from Costco. Maui ribs from Costco. I gotta make them myself. I can't get them at a restaurant. So I'll grill up some Maui ribs, and I'll have some fucking potatoes or even fries with that, yam fries with some Maui ribs. Boy, I might have that tonight. God damn it, JT.
So we know number 1 for you is Victor,
Yeah.
but your top 5 bodybuilders.
Top 5 bodybuilder. You got to give it to Arnold. I'll give it to Arnold, and then Tom Platz, because Mr. Legs doesn't get enough love. And then fuck. Okay, so no, the homie. Oh my god, fucking, I'm an idiot. Who's the vegetarian? Frank Zane. Frank Zane, that physique, because that was before they started getting grotesque. And it was still, I got all of this out of the Encyclopedia Bodybuilding, the Arnold book, right? But I remember how much the Arnold revered Frank Zane for his physique and the vacuum. He pretty much and the vacuum, and done properly, is one of, like, human beings shouldn't be able to do it. It's so fucking insane to be able to do that suction. And I feel like I think it was Frank Zane, that one that pretty much started the vacuum, right? So and he had a whole method to how you can practice yourself to do it and stuff like that. So Frank Zane, Victor, Arnold, obviously, Tom Platz, and then who else would I give it to? This is important. This is very, very important. Oh, fuck. Lee Priest.
Oh yeah,
Lee Priest, because how short but how stocky he was. He was a fucking tank. And I feel like for his weight class, he was a savage, man. I love the way he trained.
It's because he was a heavy limb bodybuilder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? His arms were just wacky. Midsection was unreal.
Yeah.
Just absolutely shredded. And
does.
he beat Ronnie, right? He beat Ronnie one year.
He beat Ronnie. That was the thing, but that was before Ronnie juiced, right?
Yeah.
So that was early, and then I think Lee Priest had already retired by the time Ronnie kicked off. Honorable mention, who should have been on the first list, Dorian Yates, man. Dorian Yates, not only for the bodybuilder he was back in the day, his like one exercise 10 set fucking program, which was outrageous, but who he is as a person now and how he's found spirituality and kind of reinvented himself as a person is really dope. Really dope.
Yeah, I think people kind of get it twisted. Like right now when I program people's routines, there's like feeder sets or acclimation sets, whatever you want to call them. And people think like Dorian walked in, put on 4 plates, then did this, then did that. And it's like he did one set here, one set here, one set here, and he's done. No.
No, there's a
Like
whole
I
bunch
remember hearing him say like, no, I did a plate, but instead of doing 15, 20, I did 8.
Yeah.
2 plates for like 4, 3
Yeah.
plates for like 4, and then go up, right? Anybody that watched Blood and Guts, if you're
Yeah.
like a maniac like me, you're counting the reps
Yeah,
and the
100%.
sets
Yeah, you gotta
while
note that
while it's
out.
going
Like,
on. And you're like, oh, that's the routine, right?
mhm.
Not thinking about like, hey, maybe they clipped out some stuff, right? And I'm like,
Yeah,
fuck
for
that,
sure.
And I
Yeah.
did it exactly. But Dorian Yates was cool because you saw a side of him outside of bodybuilding. And you know
Definitely.
what, man? Jay Cutler has a pretty crazy life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That he's private. He had a divorce and stuff like that, and it's
Yeah.
crazy because after his career was over is when they split. So
Yeah.
it's almost like she stayed with him
Mhm.
until he reached the
You know,
pinnacle.
for Jay Cutler, he never looked happy to me. That's why he's not even on my list
Yeah.
because he never looked like he was enjoying himself.
Man, if
Even
you're
Phil,
if, but he's
Phil Heath looked
after
like he
if
having
he
fun.
but if he's after Ronnie, man, think about how many
A
fucking
lot of
second
pressure.
places, bro. And
Oh,
01, people thought he should have won, and then they gave it to Ronnie.
yeah.
And there's years coming up. And man, the shitty part is this. He just came up in the time of Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah.
That's the shitty part. Otherwise, we're talking about think about if there's no Ronnie.
Yeah, 100%.
Jay Cutler, but then here's another thing, man. This is where you can't even do bodybuilding math. Jay Cutler wins, beats Ronnie, then he barely sneaks by Victor, and then he loses to Dexter in 08.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what, man? Maybe Jay was only as crazy as he was because he was always chasing Ronnie. I think
Jason
it's
Roney.
your, I
That's
think,
such a great perspective. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But there's one bodybuilder that I always think deserves credit, and he always gets slept on in these lists is Lee Haney.
Lee Haney, fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Phil
He
Heath.
lived he lived who did he live with? I think he lived with Frank Zane. He lived with one of the guys. They were roommates for a long time too, because I think he tried the vegetarian stint for a bit as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And Phil Heath kind of got the short end of the stick because he was the first social media Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, definitely.
And dude, like if you look at John Bones Jones,
Yeah,
he's
definitely.
beating the shit out of people. He's a little cocky. If you remember, like our generations, Tito Ortiz beating the crap out of people and
Yeah,
fingering
yeah,
them
yeah.
after the fights and burying them.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, yo, dude, like, come on. There are some athletes that have that bit of like mental where it's like, I'm a dream killer or whatever, right? But that's cool. All right, man. So actually, I wanted to share this so people. We'll definitely get into how people can reach you, but I thought
Yeah.
I'd just screen share this here. Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? The Instagram page.
Yeah. That's
Cool. So at Fit Nation Ben
me.
for anybody that wants to follow you. So we got some cool videos here. You're pretty active on here, right?
Yeah, pretty. I try and stay as active as I possibly can.
Cool. So for the listeners at Fit Nation Ben, and then also Fit Nation at Fit Nation BC also is the other page. And it looks like you guys are posting regularly on here. So
Yeah, we try and get out there once a week, so definitely some tips and some. We're gonna have some cool stuff coming out this year. To kind of change up our little approach to socials, try and
okay.
provide more value and stuff like that. Yeah.
Did you get any double XL hoodies yet?
Double what?
Double XL hoodies yet?
No, man. That's the one
Bro,
side that we don't get. I'll
they
hook you guys
wanted,
up. Don't
I
worry. We got
wanted
some
it.
cool gear
Jazz,
coming out that way too.
it's so funny. Jazz is like handing me large. I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? He's like, come on, bro, you can fit into it. I was like, I put it on. I was like,
you know,
you think there's no one here that's XL, man?
I'm actually glad we did this podcast because I let some people know. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have Ben on from Fit Nation, and they're like, hey, like, aren't you a coach? Like, why would you want to have other coaches on? And I'm
That's
like,
funny.
listen, bro, come on.
It's called
This
the
is,
law of abundance.
I think there's not enough of us out there,
100%.
right? I think there's more people that are needed to kind of, just guide people in this direction, man. I'm huge on just seeing people like when they get in the gym and start training and start doing something good for themselves, even from mental health or whatever, even for the next generation. So I'm glad we did this. I don't give a shit about competition, this, that. I think we need more people out there. Hopefully we can do some more. I think we should do another podcast because I didn't even get half. I didn't even get through half my questions.
Absolutely.
But man, is there any other avenue that people can reach you outside of Instagram? Do you want to? If you have any other,
you know what,
channel?
Instagram is probably the best bet. If not, I'm a pretty open book, right? I have all of my information out on Instagram. So if you don't want to DM me, there's text message available, whatever you guys want. I'm an open book. I mean, we're located in Surrey. We're pretty easy to find. Just come through, man. Like anybody come through at any time. We're kind of that central hub that we're trying to be for, that location in Surrey. And, I'm at my purpose is service. So I'm at the service of the people, whatever they need. including you guys, right? So whatever you guys need, I appreciate you guys having me on and letting me ramble as much as I can, because sometimes I don't shut the fuck up. I appreciate you guys for creating space like this and having a real open-sided conversation on
this is always better, man. I always find that there's not enough time if you're in constricted frames, like, oh, let's do a quick 10-minute video. This is always better. Man, thank you very much for taking the time, bro. It's been it's longer than an hour. We typically try to do 1 hour, but man, like, this great information.
Another one. Yeah,
we're gonna have to do another one for sure, man. Definitely. Or maybe we'll hop on yours.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe we'll have to do that. That might be a better look as well. Well, let's just say job's not done. All right.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks again, man. Appreciate it, brother. Thanks. Take care. Bye, everybody.